everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today we've got something special on the table here. This is going to be an unboxing for a Kickstarter prototype. That's right, what you're looking at right now is legitimately a Kickstarter prototype. I can tell you right now, I'm already blown away at the production value here just in this prototype form. This is for Dawnshade, the Watcher's Prophecy. This comes from Highborne Games. It's a cooperative adventure designed by Ty Vance and Jet Riker. Dawnshade can be played solo right out of the core experience all the way up to 5 players. So as you've already seen, the box itself is a hexagon. That is quite different than what most of us are used to with square and rectangle shape board game boxes. So the first thing I noticed when I took this thing and placed it on the table, bringing it out of the packaging, I was first off blown away that I was looking at a prototype, but second off, the artwork was phenomenal, and then third off, this shape really makes you stare at it because it's so different than what you're used to. I really like this deep hexagon shaped box. It looks fantastic from all angles. And that brings me to these side panels, of which there's of course 6, and we're going to go around the box so I can show you the artwork on all sides. Here's what the left-hand side of the box looks like. Again, we have some major characters that you can actually play as during your adventures in Dawnshade, and on the right-hand side, we have some of the foes you'll be up against. And here is a look at the right-hand side of the box. Again, some more of the characters you can play as and more of the foes you'll be up against. Now we're going to take a close-up look at the back of the box to find out more of what Dawnshade has in store for us. It states right here, endless adventure awaits. In Dawnshade, you play as a Petarukin, a small, often insignificant race dwelling in the corner of the Galeswood forest. 2 factions, the Unity and the Might, are at war for the hearts, minds, and souls of the creatures of Dawnshade. You've been tasked by the High Eldress of your village to form a kinship and restore balance to the fractured world. Only you and your fragile band of misbegotten adventurers can stop them. The first major aspect of Dawnshade is developing your character. You're going to choose from one of 6 robust characters, each with variable powers and customizable attributes that make each game different and challenging. You've got to choose your path aspect here, where you're embarking on a rich, choose your own adventure style narrative in which you never take the same journey twice. You'll also be aiming to build your village. You'll have the help of cogbot drudges who work on your behalf to gather resources used to upgrade village outposts. Watch out though for Frick and Frack, the tax collectors. If they land on a resource node occupied by one of your drudges, you will pay. And of course, you'll be preparing for battle. Around each corner is a new strategic adventure that will test your skills and strengthen or weaken your kinship as you approach the final threat. The Watcher's Prophecy will be fulfilled, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, it's totally up to you as to how that's going to happen. It is foretold the Watchers will return, deities who are controlling the elements of the world called Vaki. Air, fire, mountain, water, nature, and sun. Learn to channel the power and unleash powerful abilities. Your alignment with the Watchers determines which of Dawnshade's multiple endings you will encounter. That is, should you succeed in your quest. So after removing the lid of the box, this is what I'm seeing inside the Kickstarter prototype, and I can tell you first reaction is wow. Very impressed with the quality of what I'm seeing already, and we haven't even got very far into this thing. The rulebook itself looks extremely nice. We're going to go ahead and take a look through it so you can get an idea as to how they've laid that out. So first off, we'll go ahead and just flip this first cover over. Again, it's very high quality printing here on the pages as well as the cover. You can see the sheen on the cover there. So here is a quote right at the very beginning of the book. We've got an introduction right here. Again, if you really feel like it, you want to pause the screen, feel free to do so to read. And then again, may the Watchers guide you, as we talked about on the back of the box. Moving it over to the next page, we got some serious artwork here. And again, if you've got artwork in there mixed with the rules, it's going to be a nice read, that's for sure. And it's beautiful artwork at that. We've got an objective laid out right here, the background as to why you're doing what you're doing. And then we're going to move right along to the glossary here. Again, all of this that I want to mention from this point onwards Everything you've seen in this video and will see in this video is of course subject to change. It does feel like sometimes when I'm going through these parts that I'm literally unboxing a brand new game because it looks that good. But this is going to Kickstarter. Things will change and are subject to change, so take everything you see here with a grain of salt. This is not going to be the final product, and I'm sure many people will see this video in the future and think that it is because it's so well done. The setup is right here. It's a very unique looking setup. You can see there's many different hexagon shaped boards going on here, including the player boards themselves. Lots of chips, lots of dice, lots of cards. Looks really high quality. Moving on here, we've got other pages of information, which of course I'll be diving into in the near future to get a better handle on how this thing plays. Then we get into the characters section where everything's all laid out nicely. Got everything numbered, so you're easily able to find things, the phases of a turn, how quest tiles are going to work in the game. And again, one thing to mention is a lot of these tiles have changed or been upgraded in terms of the visual look of these tiles. So that's pretty cool. You'll see some of that going through the playthrough. And we'll continue on through. We're almost done the rulebook, but I do like giving you a feel of this because it is a really nice looking one. You can see that bag that we saw right at the very beginning when we opened up the lid of the box. There is that draw bag. It's going to have chips inside of it. There's game purposes for that. You can see here this is a big element, or elements, I guess, to this particular game is the fact that sun, fire, mountain, air, water, and nature are all a major part of this experience. So you've got some iconography mentioning about those as well. Your end game and campaign is mentioned here. Alternate game modes up here, full chapter modes, power level modes, quest tiles, solo mode mentioned right here, and your errata. And that's going to do it. So in total, in terms of how many pages we've got here to go through, 32. So not bad overall. And again, this is not a massively oversized rulebook, and it is a very high quality printing of one. Now this next book is truly impressive. Look at the size of this thing. And again, prototype. We're talking prototype here. I'm going to say that so many times because I am blown away by this. So the logbook is absolutely massive. So I'm going to try my best. And first what I'll do is I'll show you the draw bag. This is really nice. It's got the exact same artwork that was on the front of the box on the bag itself. Again, chips will be used inside of this. It's beautiful on both sides with the drawstring and everything. Now what I'm going to try to do for you guys is actually lay this over so you can see not only the artwork as I go through, but I'm trying not to also spoil a lot. So I'm not going to show you everything inside this logbook because yes, there potentially could be some big time spoilers, but I would like to show you maybe the initial chapter or initial start at least. So again, quotes here, the Dawnshade logbook quick reference area for difficulty level, quest decks, watch your blessings, the trilogy mode, I should say, and quest tiles laid out here. These are mainly a quick reference area of inside the book, these 2 pages. This one here is talking about your outpost upgrades and how that all breaks down depending on what game you're in and what level you're at, the phases of your turn, and the end game right here. And then we dive right into that first chapter. Now this is where I'm going to be picking up in my Kickstarter preview series. We're going to go through a playthrough. We're absolutely going to start from the very beginning. We'll be doing it in a solo capacity though, so we'll see how that changes and shapes things, but I imagine chapter number 1 is where we're going to start, so we'll be reading through all of this narrative at that point. And you can see there's some gorgeous artwork inside of the book to go along with it to really draw you into the story itself, not just walls of text. So that's a really nice bump up there. And of course, the actual artwork is really good, really good. And you've got your mention of rewards and things like that. But this is really as far as I want to show you without spoiling anything further. Literally, this book is ridiculously massive. There is a ton of content inside this thing. So I'm doing kind of a quick flip to give you an idea as to not only some of the artwork, but also some of the chapters and pages in here. It's craziness. Hard to to avoid spoilers if I go any further with this. So I'm just going to probably stop right there. Next up, we got the 4 major player boards all in prototype form here. We have elements all the way around, as we talked about earlier. You'll notice that water, sun, and the mountains over here are all tier 1, and you've got earth, wind, and fire at tier 2. You'll also notice inside of each of these, it talks about what needs to combine in order to go to that next tier. So you'll start with tier 1 elements, try to combine things to make these other tier 2 elements. So for instance, to make a tier 2 wind element, you're going to need to combine water as well as the mountain together to get that. And typically and always, it's actually right in between the 2 elements it needs in order to actually make that element. So that's a major part of the game. In the middle here, we have these stat dial areas. They're like cogs, but it's really a gear that's going to sit in here and rotate, and it's going to actually give you numerical tracking on where you're at in each of these stats, whether it be attack, items, number of items you can carry, defense, and you again have an overdrive situation going on down here. So as your overdrive increases over time, you'll eventually get to the end, which will give you an overdrive ability. You have 3 special dice for your particular character. They're named right here, and when you actually access them by leveling them up, essentially, or training them up, you'll be able to put the dice in these slots and have them available to you. And of course, you got your HP dead center in the middle. It's really nice to see everything's all cut out because you won't have to worry about anything moving around, especially being that these are cut like a cog or a gear. They are not going to fall out if you shake the table for sure. So that's the first one. The next one here, we have Ash. This is a Storm Blade. So you'll notice some differences already down here with some of the special abilities and the overdrive ability. And of course, the actual special dice for this character as well. Third character in row here, we've got the Gravamender. And again, differences with the dice, differences with the abilities. And last but not least, we have a Rune Weaver. And again, differences with this, differences with this. The next component inside the box is a mat. This mat is a Vaki mat, as it notes right down here at the very bottom. There's an unaligned spot. There is a balanced spot right here. You can get +1 Vaki right here for being balanced. We'll talk more about that later on, of course. All the different elements and all the different tiers are represented that we talked about from the player boards, except here we're doing some tracking as well along the outside. There's punch outs for a cube to slot in there, as well as tracking for the level, threat, and XP, as well as an area for training points. Again, all this will be explained during the setup in terms of how this should be set up, and then also how it's used during gameplay in the playthrough. Next component in the box is called the Quest Mat, and as you can see right here, the artwork on it definitely gives you that vibe. You're going to have a whole bunch of hex tiles, and this is where you're going to be starting your adventure on a hex represented by the starting village. You're going to be revealing quest tiles from the quest deck and placing them here on this map as you go out and journey into the land. Next up here, as it notes at the very bottom of this particular mat, this one is the battle mat. So whenever you have battles inside of Dawnshade, this is the mat you're going to become very familiar with. So here's a look at the next level worth of components inside the box. I can tell you right now, if the final version has this type of setup and teardown in terms of a storage organizer inside the box, I'm going to be really impressed. If the prototype has it like this, I can only imagine that the final version will have an equally as good organizer, if not better. And of course, this does have that prototype feel, but it's really, really useful. You can see right here, I can literally just lift this whole tray up and take trays out and place them around the game table where I want to get a game going without having to spend a lot of time breaking things apart. So first off, we got a whole bunch of dice right here. And of course, the Kickstarter campaign will mention a lot more about the organization inside the box when it launches. We've also got some little trackers here. This is all about tracking those different elements. They're in all of the different colors. There's a number of those inside this bag. Over here we have colored cubes, of course. They're going to sit in all of those cut out spots on the player boards or the actual Vaki mat. You've also got these dice right here. These are really impressive. They're really chunky. They're bigger than regular D6s, and they are beautifully made in the prototype. You can see right here the actual quality of them. They're infused on the dice themselves. They have a beautiful sheen to them. And again, the size of them is what really, really impresses me. These are not small dice, so they feel great in the hands. And and they look awesome. So if the actual final product is as good as this looks, I can only imagine how nice those final ones are going to really be. So again, we'll talk more about the iconography on the dice, what they represent later on in setup and during the playthrough. But for now, I'd like to show you some of those. These ones I'm not going to take out of the bag. These are pretty straightforward. You will see these on the game table when we get into the actual playthrough. Here we have cards denoted tier 1 items, tier 2 items, and tier 3 items across the way, all with different colors. More dice down here, and then a section right here for some mini cards. These are all about targets. Here we've got the target deck. Let's go through these cards quite quickly. The backs are pretty obvious. The fronts are even fairly obvious. We've got color here, iconography, and then we got ones here that are just the straight color, nothing else, and some that represent a character within the game. So I'll be going through these to determine the differences across these cards and why there are differences and how to actually interpret them as I learn the rules myself. So this is the target mechanism. As you can see, this replicates itself across all the characters. So that is the mini cards here for the target deck. Let's go through these tier 1 items and see what they have in store for us. A whole bunch of them. You got the ability here listed in the middle. You've got the buy section over here, sell section right here, the title going through the middle, and artwork, of course, up top. They have a very nice uniform look and feel to them. I'll try my best not to get my thumb on top of these, but that might be difficult, being as it's right there. But you'll see there's duplicates of some of these, of course, because multiple characters could potentially get them. But we've got mixes here of consumables as well as equipment that you can potentially wear to boost yourself. You can feel free to pause the screen if you want to actually read the stats on these particular cards, whether they be abilities or one-time uses, or even some wonderful equipment to wear. There's a number of these that do have 3 or 4 sometimes even. And depending on the Kickstarter and how it's run, of course, there could be potentially more of these tier 1 cards added in than what you're even seeing here. Next up, we'll take a look at the tier 2 items, of which there's a little bit less, but of course these are getting a lot more expensive likely and more powerful in terms of their use. So again, feel free to pause the screen if you want to kind of take in any of these cards. Next up is the tier 3 item deck. There is less of these cards, but they are more expensive and likely more powerful as they continue to go up in those tiers. So I'll show you each of these cards. Definitely getting costly, that's for sure. But this one here, like restoring 5 HP, sounds pretty useful. Rerolling dice. At the bottom of the tier 3 item deck, there were 2 promo items, so I'll show you these right here. This is the Dawnshade on the right, and the Tawny Launcher on the left. One thing I do notice is the fact that these dice right here are all the special dice for each of the 4 major characters. Again, we'll be talking a lot about those when we hit the playthrough. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove all of these trays as we go further down into the box to see what's in store for us a little deeper. So we'll take these 2 trays away. And underneath of them we have some more cards, more chips, and some now hexagon tile. This deck of cards pertains to the major characters that you're controlling inside the game. So you have reference cards here for each of the characters. Everyone that's playing the game will have one of these, depending on which color character that they're controlling. So there's all of them right there, all 4. And then we go to the abilities deck. Of course, inside the abilities deck is all the characters' abilities, and you'll know which one's for which just based on the color backing plus the actual picture in the top right-hand corner. But they're all mixed currently, so I'll just go ahead through them quickly because they're in no particular order here. Feel free to pause the screen if you wish. This will make a lot more sense when we get to the setup and the playthrough as to what these abilities can do in terms of the iconography along the left-hand side. But you can see they all use elements. So that's a big thing. Plus, the tier level really matters as well, as depending on whether you have actual access to some of these abilities or not. And we'll have to figure out which ones you start with and which ones you have to gain over time. Let's go through some of these hex tiles here for quests. This should be quite interesting. So I'll show you some of the artwork on these. And again, all of this is subject to change and the artwork subject to change. This is all prototype. So here we got major threats. We have a Watcher's Temple here. Here we have a village, all outposts. This one's another village. And another village. Different villages. We have an outpost here. Another outpost. Another outpost. Another one. You see there are differences in all of them in terms of how they look. And also in brackets you're noticing the difference too. A tavern here, for instance. This is a foundry. They're all going to have differences when you run into them. What you can actually do when you get there. Battle here. Battle there. These are going to probably initiate that battle mat that we saw earlier on. Take those ones away. And then here on this side, we have journey tiles. Number of those. You notice that there's road patterns here. They're going to have to actually match up when you put them together. It's worth mentioning that the major threat tile that I just showed you in that pile actually is double-sided for that particular one. There's another stack of tiles inside the box, and there is a difference with these ones. Not on the back side, but on this side, you'll see that each of these actually have event and then a number after it. And they go all the way up. And this, of course, is going to trigger things that are going to occur inside the logbook as you move through the game. So that's going to be quite interesting, throwing all kinds of different stuff at you. And I guess basically what it mentions on the back of the book about every game being different, you're not going to experience the same things, in that variation through these tiles is certainly going to add that into the play. Now let's take a look at some of the chips in the game. I'm not going to show you every single one of them because there's actually quite a bit. The row here on the far left-hand side behind my hand, that is the black row over there. I've taken half of them out, so I'll show you them as we go through it. You'll see the artwork of the actual enemy on the one side. Flipping it over, you'll see HP, and you'll see a number of other things that this thing does, whether it's attack, defense, special abilities, and so on. The actual chips themselves are very, very nice. Great quality all the way around. And they feel wonderfully weighted in the hand, which is fantastic. Moving right along, you can see some other ones there as well. Some interesting creatures as we go through. And some of these, I think, were on the actual side of the box. We'll flip this over to the opposite side to see the difference there in stats. Moving right along to the next row of chips. These ones are white, and you'll see the actual artwork on the front, the name of them, flipping them over. Same thing as the black ones. You've got stats on the opposite side. There are multiple of a number of these. And then there are some different ones as well. I'm not going to show you every single one because there are quite a bit, and we'll be seeing a lot of them during the playthrough here. Continue on through. There's another one for you. Flip that one over. That one has a pretty high HP. Now, just so you're aware, I'm only pulling out about 6 chips from each row, and there's easily around 20. So again, I'm not showing you absolutely everything because there is a ton here inside this box, but we will be seeing a majority of these types of creatures and entities when we actually start playing through it ourselves. There's a cog bot right there. We'll flip this one over, the cog beast. We'll take a look here at the cog bot itself. That one's of interest to me. Middle row of chips here is all about the actual characters inside the game. The major ones that you're going to be controlling. You got the character chip here. I'll flip that over to the opposite side. You've also got chips here which, from what I can tell, at least look like armor upgrades. And they potentially denote that with the nodes on the side there. Flip them over to the opposite side so you can see that. And the exact same thing can be said for the rest of the chips in that row here. So we'll just move through them quite quickly so you can see. The next row of chips, there's just 6 here in my hand, but many more down below. You can see these are kind of like status chips of some type. We'll be learning more about that. Drudge on this side, and this one's drudge, but has a warning on the opposite side. Moving right along through them. Same thing over here, actually. So all 6 of those, these all seem to be like status. Maybe the brown ones are representative of that. Prototype also includes some Roman numeral chips as well. And here's a handful of other chips inside the box. Threat, XP, Kinship, the Active Player, and the Level chip. There's also a number of Watcher Blessing tokens inside the game. This is just 6 of the different ones, but there's multiple of each of these inside the box. So this one here, we got Vaki right here. This one is a damage token. This is a transfuse token, Mist token, Shield token, and finally a Wild token. So now we're down to the final layer of the box. You'll see here we've got denominations of coins inside the game: silver, gold, and what looks to be bronze. Of course, all likely worth different values, should be. And this is where we'll be going to grab them. They're all again broken up in trays that I can easily pull out. Quite nice. We have tons of these health chips in here, and that's all they are. So I won't pull every single one out, but I will show you what one looks like up close. They're very, very nice, high quality, just like the other chips we saw. So I'll place those back in, and then over here the blue ones represent the shields, or the defense most likely inside the game, and these are represented in blue. So there's a number of those. Down behind it here we have these conditions. These are really interesting. There's a number of them, and you'll see on one side it'll say something like blind, and then the opposite side it says focus. So it's kind of like the polar opposites of each other. This one is mended, or subdued. Or we have agile, and on the opposite side we have slowed. There's a number of different examples of these inside this one. So airborne, cursed. So there's a whole bunch more than just that, but there's an example of some. And then you've got these cogs. Very, very interesting, because these are the cogs I was talking about earlier. They're going to sit on your player board, and they actually denote which one or which numerical value they're actually pointing towards. So if your attack rating is at a 2 or defense is at a 2, you'll put your cog or your gear into the slot of your character board and have that green portion of the gear pointing towards that numerical value. Going back to this second layer for a second, I do want to mention the fact that I didn't show you every single chip that was in these rows. I showed you only the first 6 of most of these rows, all of these, 6 of these, all of these, and all of these. So you didn't really see the back halves, or maybe 66% of these black and white ones back here. But don't worry, we're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff as we go through the playthrough. Some of that I'm going to leave as a surprise until you actually see it. But again, you're going to get into some of the bigger ones in the back. And that's going to conclude the unboxing of Dawnshade, the Watcher's Prophecy from Highborne Games. I really hope that this video, along with my future setup video and Kickstarter playthrough during the campaign, is going to help you make an informed decision as a solo player for Dawnshade. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in a future Dawnshade video. And as always, keep on rolling solo.